Hi, I'm Tessa, a veteran educator working in the field of special education.
And I'm Kim, mom of 2 autistic boys and a late diagnosed autistic person myself.
And welcome to Totally Over the Spectrum, where we dive into embracing autism through understanding and support. Welcome to episode 15. And do autistic people really need accommodations? I'm going to let you take this one on.
I'm just going to break down how we're going to talk about it. I like to have sort of, like a table of contents at the beginning of it, let people know what we're going to talk about. And the first thing, of course, I'm going to start with definitions so that we know, and then give some examples, why they're necessary. We'll talk about how to know what kind of accommodations you need or your child needs. And we usually think of accommodations in terms of school or in the workplace, but at the end, I'd like to talk about putting in accommodations for everyday life.
Okay. The approach I'm going to take in this one, and I was back and forth with this, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one. And the reason I'm going to do that is because when autistic people do request accommodations, the neurotypical people generally push back and say, well, what's so special about you that you require these accommodations? And it happens very often in a workplace or in society. So I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one and really push those boundaries and, get you to sell your accommodation needs.
Well, I don't know if I can sell it. I think people need to know that we don't rehearse these. These are just, you do your thing and I do my thing and we come together and we talk about it.
Yes.
So this is authentic. You don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what you're going to say.
Yeah. And we both do our research. And yes, I have done an awful lot of research on this, and it is a controversial subject. And these are the ones that I love because it gives us a lot of good back and forth.
It does. All right. So we'll start with definitions. The definition is usually, I'm pulling them from the Education Act or something in the education system, because that's usually where the better definitions are coming from. And I think it's what a lot of people are thinking about when they're thinking about accommodations is school or workplace. So accommodations are changes in an education or work environment that help an individual be successful.
Okay.
There are 2 other definitions that I want to talk about.
Oh, I was waiting for those.
Because these are going to come up a lot in this conversation. There's a cat walking around if anybody's paying attention. Equality means the same. That's all equality means, the same. Equity is the other component of this, and equity means being treated fairly and impartially.
And I agree with, I lean more towards the equity aspect of it. And, it's not that I don't agree with equality, but the equity piece is huge for me.
Society tends to talk about equality, right? We talk about workplace equality, gender equality, equal pay, equal opportunity, all good things. But for autistic people, equality doesn't always work out well. Being treated the same as a neurotypical person does not set us up for success. That's at school, work, or socially. I'll have an example.
Okay.
Say you have 3 people, and their shirt sizes are small, medium, and large. You give them all medium shirts because that's the average, right? That's the average size. Mm-hmm. So that's equality. You all get the same shirt, equal, all the same, here you go. But it doesn't fit everybody. So equity would be giving them each a shirt that is the size that they require.
That's a great example. Thank you.
It's amazing how many people think that they are aiming for equality when really equity makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I always choose for equity.
The Ontario Ministry of Education has a resource guide, and we're in Ontario, Canada, for people listening not in Canada. And that resource guide is called Learning for All. It's a long title. Learning for All, a guide to effective assessment and instruction for all students, kindergarten to grade 8. And it basically goes over the process of assessment and instruction designed to improve student learning, both for elementary and for secondary levels. And they have a list of shared beliefs that they have written in this. And one of them is fairness is not sameness. And I really, really like this. So they're saying equity is not equality, that being treated fairly impartially is not the same as being treated the same. Right? So fairness is not sameness. And I really like the way that sounds. I think that's easier to remember and easier to understand than equity is not equality.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's talk about some examples of accommodations.
Okay, let's do this.
Generally, that's broken down into 3 categories. You have instructional, environmental, and assessment.
Okay. Okay. I was surprised that the social aspect didn't come into it too.
Yeah, well, that. So was
As
I.
a category unto itself.
It should be.
Yes.
So that's a good point.
Okay.
But when we're talking about accommodations at school or in the workplace, this is what comes up,
Okay.
right? So you're right. There's a deficit there. They should also be taking in a social component.
Considering that autism is a communication, deficiency, right? Is rolled under DMS-5 that it falls under communication. So I'm surprised that the social
So
aspect
we
of it is not there.
actually had a comment from one of our viewers saying that it is not a social deficit. It is not a social issue, that autism under the DSM-5 is social communication and social interaction. So it's a social thing, and it's not necessarily a general communication thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The nitty-gritties of it is the social communication aspect of it.
So I can't remember who, because names are hard for me. I can't remember who said that comment, but thank you for that comment.
And we did reply.
I did, of course. So instructional accommodations are changes in teaching strategies, including the styles of presentation, methods of organization, or the use of technology and multimedia. So I've broken it down into examples for students and examples for adults in the workplace, but there's overlap between the two of those things.
Okay.
So for students, you could have either verbal or written instruction. And both of those methods can go horribly, horribly wrong if they aren't clear and concise. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yes, absolutely.
Like, my preferred method of learning is watching a YouTube video where the person is demonstrating a skill while talking about what they're doing,
Okay.
but without fluff. Like, don't talk
Keep
to me
to
about
the-
breakfast while you're showing me how to do a task. I'm not interested. I want to know. I'm interested in that task, and I want to learn all of that right now. Right? So stay on track for me.
Okay.
Right? And it's not like I don't like to hear people on YouTube talk about other things, but if I'm trying to learn a specific thing, I just want that thing. Right? So sometimes I click through. Anyway, students might also need extra time to respond, and I think that's another one that could be in the workplace as well. Just extra time. We need extra processing time. And when you're having a regular conversation with a neurotypical person, 3 seconds is too long for them. It takes the average person about 3 seconds to want to fill in the gap.
I think that is a society has evolved to the point where we race through time, I find. Anyway, but I'm supposed to be playing devil's advocate here instead of batting for your team. So keep going.
Okay. Adaptive equipment, like my oldest son, Alex, is level 1 low support needs. He's in college, and he has a computer program that will record a lecture and provide a transcript of it. It's called Glean, Glean. It's a really phenomenal program. Might also use graphic organizers, schedules, and depending on the age of the child, timers or verbal countdowns, like 5 more minutes and then it's time for lunch. So this is not an exhaustive list. We'd be here all day, but these are sort of the major ones that I found.
Okay. So why do you think that it is solely necessary for a person with autism? There are multiple exceptionalities that could very easily benefit from all of these descriptions that you've provided for me. So why not everybody else that has that could display some of these symptoms that could very easily benefit for that? So what is the argument over there? I can see a person who has a working, an executive function delay who could use proper graphic organizers. I could see a person with FAS, which is fetal alcohol syndrome, requiring that additional time and that additional support. People with dyslexia, the information being presented, whether it be audially or visually, to give them the opportunity to learn in their style that is best suited for them. So why can we not say these accommodations should be available to anybody that has an exceptionality and not just a person with autism?
Well, it should be. Do you not find that that is in the school system or in the workplace?
I find that it is offered far more effectively in the school system because the governing, procedures are in place in order to make sure that those are provided. Where the workplace is, I'm not as confident. I think because your self-advocacy skills have to be so high that I don't think it translates so easily into a workplace accommodation. And here I am batting for your team again.
Well, because how can you not? I mean, I would like to talk about the how and the why after going through my examples, because I have to follow my list.
Okay.
So I like that you're thinking about it, and I think it's an important point, and I kind of need to do it in order.
Okay.
So where were we? Instructional accommodations for adults, right? In the workplace, which might look a little different from school. Clear instructions with the ability to ask for clarification. And I think that that's a component that is really, at school, it's okay to ask when you don't understand something, and your teacher is generally pretty accommodating to help you out. But a boss is not always as forthcoming or as willing to give detailed clarification on instructions. And I think that that's worthy of being an accommodation, to being recognized as something that autistic people could use.
Okay. So one could safely argue and say, well, if you have the qualifications needed to do this job, then those particular, explicit, instructions from your boss should not be required, because you should be able to do your job effectively enough in order to know when to fill in those gaps.
Okay, so if I am a baker and that is my profession and I've gone to school to learn how to do that, that doesn't mean that I can read the chef's mind, the head chef, and know exactly what they want me to do. They might say, okay, make this dessert. I can make that dessert, right? Because that is following precise steps in order to do that. But if we're talking about making entrees, right? How I can make a dish, but how that chef wants it might be different, right? How many different ways are there to cook a steak? How do you want that done exactly?
Okay, so if the chef says to you, I want it blue.
Well, then you should know that.
Yes.
But if they just said, go cook a steak, then I should be able to say, how would you like that cooked?
Okay. So there is generalized instructions, there is specific instructions, and then there's detail-orientated instructions. So where do you think the accommodation needs to lie?
With the individual who's asking for the accommodation. It's going to be different for everyone.
It is going to be different for everybody. So people are going to argue and say, well, I can read between the lines. Why can't you?
Because I'm autistic.
Well,
my brain doesn't work that way.
So do you think that society is going to always accommodate you?
I think in my experience, no. But I'd like that to change. And as an adult, there are avenues you can take now, right? Because autism is becoming a little more understood, not enough, but a little more. So I can go to my doctor and say, I have it written down for later.
Okay.
Obviously, we're going to skip around here.
I'm gonna sidetrack you. Sorry, it's just like when things come up, I'm just going to present them to you and go, hey, why not? I'm not doing a
And I
great
hope everybody's
job.
paying attention about how hard that is for me, that I have this list of things that I want to go through. And you're like, oh, but let's talk about this now. And I'm like, but that doesn't follow the order of what I'm trying to talk about.
But that's what society does.
I
So
know.
I'm
just
doing my best
to mess me up. It's working.
You know,
It's working. And now
I'm
I
not
can get a little bit irritated about it. Do you see me like malfunctioning over here a little bit?
I know
Sure.
how to push her buttons, and I'm not doing a great job of kind of defending a neurotypical person, because my mindset is not built that way, right? My mindset is built to function and quickly come up with strategies and and methods in order to assist a person in their learning and to advance. So this is actually quite a difficult task for me to think, within a neurotypical box, because I'm going, well, that makes no sense. So as much as it is a challenge for you, it's a challenge for me to come up with, the devil advocate side of things. Go for it.
I found it. So
Okay.
your family doctor can determine what they call your functional limitations, right? So they can't determine what accommodations you get in the workplace, right? That has to be between, your employer basically gets to decide, but a good employer is going to decide with you what kind of accommodations that they can put in place for you, to the point of undue burden. So if it becomes too much of a burden for the employer, then they do not have to give you that accommodation. And I don't know the legal line, or if it's more of a subjective line. I don't know.
Okay, so that is actually, I think, a perfect example in which a lot of employers, a lot of neurotypical people can say, the burden should not be on me to then go above and beyond my job description in order to accommodate you to achieve your, job description. So that would be, I'm assuming, a neurotypical response from people. Go, why do I have to do all of this extra work so that you can do your job?
There is a component of this in the Human Rights Act in Canada.
Which you're going to find.
Oh, which I have to scroll down to the bottom because it's not in order.
But this is a good exercise.
No,
for
it's
you,
terrible.
Kim.
I hate this.
It is. You're doing so good. Look
No,
at you.
it hurts. It hurts on the inside. I don't know why you're making me do it.
Because this is how society functions.
So if you
right?
want people to see me dysregulated, you did it.
But you're also demonstrating clearly to people that just because you're dysregulated, you're still able to be in a mindful state where you can focus on me and, and work through that dysregulation and apply what needs to be applied. So you're actually demonstrating a really good skill right now. So kudos to you.
Oh, you say that because I'm hiding it. I'm internalizing the pain. I'm talking about it, but you're not seeing it physically because it's happening on the inside. And if we push this far enough, I will have a meltdown, just so you know. Just so you know. So I am really dysregulated right now. Really.
But you're doing good.
Oh, no, you think I'm doing good, but I'm not doing good.
You're at that perfect boundary of just being pushed out of your comfort zones, but you're learning through this. And this is the sweet spot of education. Okay? I love it.
Hate it. Just saying. The Ontario Human Rights Code, this is like their education part, is that the duty to accommodate requires that the most appropriate accommodation be determined and then undertaken short of undue hardship, right? That undue burden. And the most appropriate accommodation is one that most respects the dignity of the student with a disability, meets individual needs, best promotes inclusion and full participation, and maximizes confidentiality. So it is very clearly written for education. I don't have the one for workplace. Didn't find that.
It's pretty much along the same lines, but it's a lot of times I find the pushback is going to be coming to you when it says the hardship then is now placed on me to help you to meet your accommodation needs to do your job.
I'm sure there are certain physical things that I know employers have to put in place. Like if someone has a bad back, they might have to get someone to come in and get an ergonomic chair for them, right? Like that's depending on the workplace, I think the human rights covers that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know all of the human rights because I hate reading it, basically. I hate reading legal stuff. I can't focus on it. I hate the language. So it's really hard for me to go and look that stuff up and present it. Can we now go back to instructional accommodations?
Now we have stretched those boundaries a little bit, and you've worked through that, and you were able to bounce back and forth and provide our listeners with really good back and forth conversation over here, and experienced a little bit of growth. We can now go back to allowing you to get back into rhythm.
I've learned nothing. I've learned nothing.
Oh, yes,
except that I hate it. That's all I've learned. This is not helping me.
Yet.
I feel like workplace instructions should always be written so that you have a document to prove exactly what was asked. And I know that sounds a little bit paranoid maybe, but the number of times I've had someone say, that's not what I asked for, or that's not what I said. And then for me to be able to go back and say, yeah, that's what you said. Like, I got a pretty good memory for what you said because I'm trying to follow that to the letter. But neurotypical people don't always talk in, they think that they're being clear, but what they said is not actually what they meant.
Okay.
And I think emailing can also be good because it allows for more uninterrupted work time, right? If you don't have the notifications going off that the email's coming in, and if they don't need to be responded to right away, it can be a great way for those just to happen in the background while you're focusing on the task that you're supposed to be doing. Because being interrupted is terrible.
Okay.
As we can see from this whole thing.
So you think that an email or written descriptive tasks should be incorporated to meeting your specific needs. Not every person with autism requires this. I get that. So then the burden comes back to then the employer going, but I'm an audio learner, right? I do best when I speak out and I talk to you about a situation and a task. Writing it down is very difficult for me, and therefore is giving me, is putting an additional burden on me that normally I don't think is acceptable.
Okay, can I record it?
Well, you could, but, what are you going to do with the recording afterwards?
I could have it transcribed and file it away.
Okay. But I'm not going to be comfortable with that.
Why?
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
But why?
Here.
Why wouldn't you become, like, are you afraid that you're saying something that you don't want people to hear later? Like, it's just for my personal use.
So it could be the same as in, like, your paranoia. Let me have it all written down so I always have something to come back to. So this is where I think the neurotypical people and, neurodivergent can go back and forth and miss the common ground.
Sounds like an HR issue.
Once again, I'm batting for your team. Okay.
Environmental accommodations. I'm getting back on track and I can breathe a little bit now. Changes that the student or person may require in the classroom, school environment, or in the work environment. So it's not just instructional, right? We have the environmental accommodations. So proximity to the teacher, or for adults, it might be a quiet workroom in a low traffic area.
Okay. But that could be an accommodation that is not specific to a person with autism. It could be accommodations that's specific to other people.
There's a difference between someone liking something and someone needing something. You could have someone at work say, well, hey, I'd really like to have a low traffic area to work in too. Why don't I go get one? Because it's not a need. It's just a want.
It could be placed as a need. I need to have a quiet area in order to function at my optimal.
Okay, get a doctor's note like everybody else.
So do you think then we would then just now become a society where we're creating an environment where every single person has to be set up in their own specific needs and wants in order to be able to function?
I don't think neurotypical people always need it to function. I think that's the misconception. I cannot function. I will cease to function at all, right? It's not just uncomfortable. It's painful. The intensity of things is the issue, right? Not just, oh, I don't like that. I don't like it that I'm off track here. No, it causes me pain to be off track here. And although I can talk about it to you and I'm sort of half joking about it with you, internally it hurts. Like, it's physically painful. My brain is having pain from not doing this in order.
Yeah, but you're doing good. You're doing
Well,
good.
I'm glad you think I'm doing
Yeah,
good.
you
I
are.
hurt.
I know
It's
you. I
fine.
know you well enough to know how far I can push.
And I feel like this is messed up now. Like, I feel like no one's getting the right information because it's not in order.
People are getting the information. I promise you, people are getting the information.
Maybe more than they bargained for. Okay, so other environmental accommodations, sensory items like fidget toys, the chair elastics, the elastics that they put around the chair
chairs,
legs,
yeah.
pencil grips, a quiet location to write tests, frequent breaks, and some of those are going to apply to adults in the workplace as well. Also, adjustable lighting. And I could go on a whole thing about lighting and light bulbs and temperature and Kelvin and all of the things. Lighting comes from it goes from like a yellow to a blue, depending on the light bulb. And I know that a lot of autistic people don't like bright lights. They like dim lights. And I hate it. I hate the dim lights. I feel like I can't see. I don't like the yellow lights. Everything looks like it's like you're in a horror movie a little bit when the lights are too yellow. I like daylight. I like light bulbs that are daylight, which I know is really harsh for a lot of people. But then if I go outside, I need sunglasses. So it's a little bit of a contradiction, really. But I usually you have the brighter lights when you're trying to do a task. And it's probably why I don't like the yellow lights. It's because I'm always doing a task. I can never sit still. I have to be making something or doing something that requires me to focus on it. So I need the lights to be able to do that, which is probably...
I can see that as being an accommodation that most people would require. I don't think it's an exceptional accommodation for just a person with autism. I think lighting is so, each person is going to like lighting in a certain manner, right? A photographer is going to prefer a certain type of lighting compared to, somebody who is, programming, video games. So...
Sure. And I think workplaces are generally set up for neurotypical people to be able to perform their task. The problem with that is that might be painful for an autistic person. So if you're in an office and they have the whatever the general lighting is for office space, if that is too bright for the autistic person, they need to be able to have a room where they can dim those lights to do their job. So again, it's the intensity of the dysregulation. It's not simply a want, it's a need.
Okay. All right. I'm hearing you.
For adults, you might also want to work from home, have flexible hours, be able to quietly leave a meeting, because meetings can be really hard, or do them virtually with your camera off, or a scent-free workplace. See a lot of places now that are scent-free, which is kind of nice. We also have assessment accommodations. So changes in assessment procedures that enable the student to demonstrate their learning. So I'm sure you know all of these because
When
you
it
work in
comes
the school
down to
system.
the education aspect of it, really my rebuttal is going to be weak at best, right? So I'm finding it difficult to think outside of that box and go, oh, really? Well, no, I can't. Oh, no, I can't argue that one. So when it comes to the education and, environment, my rebuttal is 0 to 0. But I'm, trying very hard to then translate it into a workplace environment, and to see exactly how far you can push for any of these accommodations without it being without it being a burden to the employer. So
Yeah, I don't know where that line is.
So that's where I'm kind of pushing those boundaries for you to say, okay, education is one aspect of it, but when you go out into the workforce and into the real world, those, the transferring of those burdens then becomes, it's a fine line. Yeah, you're walking a fine line on there to what is meeting your needs versus meeting someone else's needs. But carry on with
Thank
your
you.
list.
Examples of assessment accommodations. Additional time to complete a task or assignment. Alternative testing format like oral instead of written. Or having assistive devices like a computer with spell check or the use of a calculator during exams. And like you said at the beginning, there's also this social accommodations that autistic people need. And I didn't have a heading for it. So students might need support with like group work or asking questions. I know my son Alex has a really difficult time reaching out and asking for clarification on something. And that's something that I try to coach him with and help him with. And also time management. And then for adults, I was thinking it would be great if we could get exemptions from workplace social events.
I think workplace social events is outside of your your required work hours. So I don't see how that you wouldn't have that option. So I don't think it should be part of your contract.
But does it affect your performance review? Oh, Kim never shows up to those. She's not a team player.
Well, I don't think so. I don't think it would affect.
A lot of people get hired for a job or promoted within the workplace, not because they're the best person for the job, but because the boss likes them. You can't tell me that doesn't happen.
Well, I can't tell you that it doesn't happen, but I think that it happens more frequently. It's because of that person's social interaction with not only the employer, but within the company and the employees. So their social skills are the ones that are being highlighted versus their actual clinical aspect of being able to do the job. Would you agree with that one?
Because autistic people don't socialize in the same way, or we mask highly to socialize in a neurotypical way, we get penalized for that. Right? I can't make eye contact with you all the time in like in every situation, but I can fake it pretty well most of the time. But for people who can't do that, that's affects how a neurotypical boss perceives them. It does happen. There's a lot of discrimination that happens because autistic people do not perform socially in the same way.
But then society can argue and say, well, then you're penalizing a neurotypical person who is good at socializing and saying, I shouldn't get a promotion or I shouldn't be considered for the position because I can socialize far better than the average person, especially a neurodiverse person.
I don't think
I'm just putting it out there. That would be a good, a person could potentially argue that point.
I think it depends on what the job is that you're applying for, right? What is that skill set? If it is a position that requires someone to be highly sociable, that's probably not the best fit for the autistic person anyway, right?
I would agree with you on that one, yeah.
Right? But there are a lot of really social autistic people. So that's sort of a generalization, right? I in my mind, the autistic sense of social justice, I feel like the person who is best qualified for the job should get the job. But that's not how it works.
No, it doesn't, unfortunately. But here I am agreeing with you again. I'm just trying to push those, give you that pushback to say that, hey, you need to really, paint a clear picture for those who are listening in order to really understand the level of need and the level of discomfort that a neurodivergent autistic person is in order to why we're having this back and forth conversation. I'm just trying to.
Hey, I think you demonstrated it. People can't see my headache that this has given me.
Yep.
They can't see it. I actually had a teacher say to me, but if I give a fidget toy to one child, all children are going to want one. And that was an honest defense to not giving the autistic child a fidget toy. And to me, I was thinking, well, it might be true that all the other kids want one, but they don't need one. So that would be an excellent opportunity for you to teach those children that fairness is not sameness, and to teach them about neurodiversity and inclusion at an age-appropriate level, right? Like my youngest son, Peter, is level 3 non-speaking. So if he needed specialized equipment in the classroom, not everyone was going to get it. And those kids needed to learn that Peter needs this. This is something Peter needs. He needs that, wobble chair or whatever they were. I can't remember now. It was a long time ago. To sit at floor time with the rest of you. He can't just sit cross-legged on the floor. That doesn't work for him. So he's going to sit to the side in his rocking chair that he had.
And yeah, and give him that.
And little kids are usually really good with it. They're like, oh, Peter needs that. Like, they just need it explained to them in a way that they understand.
Yeah, but, kids are sponges, right? They're at that beautiful age where their acceptance of anything and everything is so pure, right? So that's why, one of my areas that I love to work in is with kids, right? Is because that purity cannot be matched anywhere else. That's just me.
I think as people get older, I don't know, maybe it's because they didn't learn it at a young age, that it's harder to learn as you get older. Let's talk about how accommodations are determined. We talked a little bit about that. You can go to your doctor as an adult to determine those functional limitations. I hate it, but that's what they call it. For students, you have your occupational therapist recommendations. Can you talk about a little bit about what OTs do, occupational therapists?
Well, they come in and they look at your environment and they look at what your specific needs are, and whether it's vestibular needs, environmental needs, and they kind of, set up your environment and your ability to learn for your best, right? And they do so many aspects of it. It's not just the school environment. They can come to your home environment and set up everything in your home in order to help you regulate better, in order for you to be able to promote independence as much as possible. So, OTs wear multiple different hats, right, in order to be able to meet your specific needs. And I'm trying very hard over here to, articulate exactly what they do, because what they do changes based on each individual and each specific need of that individual.
Yeah, I think broadly they work on sort of functional living skills.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, living skills. Well, I would put it that way. Yeah, because there's the regular, regulation components, the physical aspect of it, the
fine motor skills.
The fine motor skills. Yeah, there's so many areas in which that they address any kind of issues, and give you the tools in order to be able to bridge that learning versus the areas of needs is great.
We also have speech and language pathologists, right? That can come in and determine some accommodations.
Yeah, they're the ones that help you promote effective communication.
Physiotherapists.
Physiotherapists help you, to help, depending upon whether you're a full care person or a partial, but help your body be at its best in order to function.
Yeah, Alex had really, really low proprioception, so knowing where his body was in the world. So his gait was off, his walking was off, and he also has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which I won't go into detail here, but it's sort of a high comorbidity for autistic people to also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so he's sort of like wobbly, right? Because he's stretchy and the doctor could just dislocate his wrists, dislocate his ankles, like with barely trying. Just
Yep.
Everything is not really attached, sort of looking. That's a whole other thing.
But
so the physiotherapist could help with those big gross motor accommodations.
Yes, and help him bring that core strength that he would need in order to be able to the areas of needs to develop those a lot better. But it makes Alex one hell of a good dancer.
He's a very good dancer. Accommodations can also be determined by teacher observation and, importantly, by parent input.
Parent input has always been crucial, right? It's been the pinnacle to any person's growth.
The cat is being really naughty and I'm enjoying it. Sorry, as an aside, because anyway, I like the cat. We talked about, see, I can't go in order now. So we've already talked about adults. We've talked about human rights. All right, I'm going to take a deep breath and recalibrate here for a second.
Look at all the ground you've covered.
I haven't learned anything. I've just suffered through it. That's all that's happened.
You have learned. You just don't know it yet.
Oh no. My head actually has a pounding headache now, but I can get through it because I'm stubborn that way. I want to talk about
resilience.
I'm not building resilience. I'm just suffering through this moment to get over it maybe in a couple of days. That's what's going to happen. I wanted to talk at the end of this about accommodations that I've put into place for myself in everyday life as a very late diagnosed autistic adult. Kitten. I didn't know that I needed accommodations for daily living. I didn't know. I just did what I'm doing now. I suffered through it and then move on to the next thing. That's all I know how to do. So I didn't realize how much pressure I actually put on myself in order to function. So getting a diagnosis allowed me to say, it's okay for me to need things that other people don't necessarily need or don't think that I might need.
Okay.
So I started wondering, what kind of things I could put in place for myself. And part of me was wondering if it was okay to do it, which sounds really weird, but it just feels like, is that okay? Is it okay for me to put these things in for myself? Like you almost feel like an imposter syndrome at the beginning.
I think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of people in society nowadays will say, is that selfish of me? Right? I think society has changed so dramatically that when somebody says, I need something, it is looked upon as they are being selfish, which is sad.
But it is true.
So so I think that conversation piece needs to change, right? That we need to have more conversation on that.
So I made a list, because of course I did, because it's nice and organized. My first one was keeping a schedule. And I've always kept a schedule because I cannot function without a schedule. So I didn't know that I needed that as an accommodation, but I absolutely need it as an accommodation. And I keep a fairly strict weekly schedule. And everybody knows it. All of my people know it. So if you call me on Sunday, I'm not doing anything. It's laundry day. Don't ask. I'm not changing it.
Yeah.
Not doing it. But the ability for me to say no, to not change that schedule, that was a big thing for me. To say, no, I actually need to keep to this schedule, because I used to switch it for people and then suffer through the change. Because I thought that doesn't make sense for other people. Like, what are they going to think if I say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't go out for coffee this morning because it's laundry day. You think laundry is more important than me? That's what they think. And now I say, I've told people about my diagnosis and I told them about my needs. And of course I have really great understanding people in my life. And I'm like, nope, can't do it. And they'll be like, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot. It was laundry day. Gotcha. Catch you next time. And everybody's good with it.
Yep. But a neurotypical person out there could go, but it's just laundry.
Oh no.
It's just laundry. You can just do laundry.
Those are not my
whenever you
people.
want.
Those are just not my people.
But I'm just giving you...
Sure, they might think that because they don't have an understanding of how the autistic brain works.
Yep.
So hopefully they would be open-minded to learning about that and starting to understand it. But I know that it's hard for people to understand things outside of their own way of thinking.
Okay.
Right? Not everybody is open to it. I wish they were. Second thing, scheduling downtime. So within that schedule, actually scheduling downtime for myself. I didn't know that was a thing I needed. I know I need downtime, but I didn't know it was okay to schedule it in and then say to other people, that's my downtime. Mm-hmm. I put my phone on do not disturb for a while. I felt like it was criminal activity. I put my phone on do not disturb so no one could bother me.
Yep, till you got used to it, right?
Well, until other people got used to it too, because not everybody was okay with that one. And I was like, oh, that's too bad. Let's stretch you outside of your comfort zone today too.
Absolutely.
It does feel selfish though. Like I do have moments of guilt if I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Because putting your needs in front of someone else's needs sounds pretty much like the definition of being selfish.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you on that point. Yeah.
So doing that for myself, and someone needs to talk to you about something and making them wait, is that being selfish? I think of the analogy of being in the airplane and having the oxygen masks fall down. You put it on yourself and then you put it on your child. Because if you do not put it on yourself, you're not going to be able to help your child. Mm-hmm. So I like that analogy.
I like that. I use that analogy a lot too.
The third one was earplugs. I want to use earplugs when I go to the grocery store. I haven't done it yet, but it's sitting there. I have them. I'm just working up to actually doing it because I have a little bit of anxiety over the idea that I am not going to hear exactly. Maybe if someone speaks to me, like they're just decibel reducing. They're not like noise canceling at all. Like mm-hmm. not, what do they call it? Like completely blocking out sound. They just reduce decibels. So yeah, that's something I sort of have to work up to because I have a little bit of anxiety about not hearing if someone's around me or talks to me, or like I don't want to be rude.
Yeah.
So
well, that's something that you can test out at home, right? And just see if Alex says something to you, if you can hear it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Or, Peter's iPad.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me, but I know it bothers Alex. The fourth one is comfortable clothing. So I hate shopping. I hate trying on clothes. Clothing is a hard thing. So if I go out and I find something that is comfortable and it fits, I will just buy one of all the colors that I like. So I'll wear basically the same clothes all the time until they wear out. And then I have to go back and shop again, which I hate. And I have sort of given myself permission to not care that other people are like, oh, are you wearing the same clothes? They're clean. They're different color. I understand they're similar colors. Or maybe I bought two of the same color, so it looks like I'm wearing the same thing every day and I'm not. That's okay. I'm just going to do that because I need that, because I cannot function when my clothing does not feel good. Mm-hmm. And unless I have an event to go to, like a wedding where there is a dress code and I understand, and I will dress for that day and be happy when I am not dressed for that day. I am just going to wear what I want to wear, and that's it. Done. I'm going to be comfortable.
Okay. I can't argue those with you. And that's a trait both of your kids have too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's
sweatpants.
Comfort with.
And I never forced them to do anything other than that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I hear that. Even though I didn't know I was autistic at the time. I was like, yeah, I feel that for you.
Yeah.
Let's just wear the comfortable things.
And a very unusual style sense by Alex that I love.
He has a lot of charisma.
Yes, he does.
Body doubling. So body doubling is when you have another person present to either help or work alongside you, or just to be there while you're doing a task, non-preferred task. I have autistic inertia, which is I have difficulty starting and stopping tasks, especially really mundane tasks like cleaning. And I like it when things are clean. I need to clean because I need things to be clean, but the act of cleaning is torturous. I hate it. To have someone actually physically present would not be okay for me. It would not work for me. So I feel heavy when there are people around sometimes. Even if they're not in the same room as me, even if they're just in the house with me, I feel a weight of having other people around. So what I can do instead is have my earbuds in. I think I hit the microphone. I can have my earbuds in and someone can talk to me. And talking to me while I'm doing the dishes or cleaning something or what, that will get me through that task in a very pleasant way. And sometimes people are not good with that. They're like, well, you're not actually paying attention to me. You're busy doing that. No, I am 100% paying attention to you. Yep. And now I am not focused on this stuff that I'm doing that I don't want to be doing.
Yep.
So you have all of my attention, as long as you
I
don't
know.
mind that sometimes the water is running in the background. And if I don't have that person to talk to, I just perseverate on the fact that I hate what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm never going to have time to do the things I actually want to do. I don't know why. It's like doesn't take forever to do this task, but it feels like forever in the moment because I
Okay.
dislike it so much.
That's a relatable to, to a lot of people.
Alarms. I set alarms for everything that's important. And that's for two reasons. One is that if, say, I have to get Peter off the bus at 2:30 in the afternoon, if I don't have an alarm for that, by 11 o'clock I'll be checking the time all the time to make sure I do not miss that 2:30, because it's very important. I need to be there. So I will have anxiety over this happening. So if I set an alarm, then I don't have to have the anxiety that this thing is going to happen. And also it allows me to forget about it. And if I need to hyper focus on something, which is like a happy place to be, I can do that knowing that the alarm will go off 15 minutes, of course, before I need to be at the place I need to
Yeah.
be. Like I'm always going to give myself a little bit of a buffer to switch mindsets so I can be somewhere. I won't, if he's there at 2:30, I'm not going to set it for 2:30. I'm going to set it for 2:15 or 2 o'clock, depending on how much time I need. But I can hyper focus on something preferable, knowing that that's taken care of and I don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
And the last one I have is stimming. And this is a hard one because I've had years of conditioning, being told that I was weird if I stimmed. So I stopped doing it. And, learning about autism and how it applies to my kids, but then relearning it in a different light when I got a diagnosis for myself, was how important stimming is in self-regulation. So by denying myself that, I'm actually injuring myself. So I've started allowing myself to stim at home because it's safe, and it's mostly verbal stimming. So I like to repeat things, but I usually just do it in my head, but I'm allowing myself to do it out loud. So sometimes I'll say things to Alex and I'll say it 3 times. I don't know why. 3, magic number. And if Peter is listening to a piece of a song over and over again, I'll find myself singing that piece of a song over and over again, because it is pleasant to just do that one piece over and over again. And as I allow myself to verbally stim, I found that I actually physically stim as well. Only I didn't know, because you suppress it for so long because you're criticized. You're made to feel like something is wrong with you if you do this. So I was doing it, and I just sort of caught myself doing it. I didn't realize I was doing it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And it is very calming. It is very self-regulating. I felt like if I had sort of forced myself to do it, it would feel weird. But just allowing myself the place to do it, it just comes back really naturally.
I haven't gotten rebuttal for any of these, because when it comes to self-regulation, in order to give somebody that emotional state of calm, regardless whether it's in an educational fact field or in an employment field or a social setting, I think that person needs to be who they are. That authentic person needs to be who they are without any excuses. So a lot of the points that you've just recently brought up, I don't have a rebuttal for them. As much as I'm trying, and I'm going, yeah, well, people who are neurotypical also have little quirky traits, and they incorporate them into their daily living or into, their educational experience or in their social setting. And it's, a lot of times people go, oh, they're quirky, but they're really nice, or they're quirky, but, and just quirky. That's it. And then move on past. So I don't see that as being, a neurotypical person, really kind of harping on that. So, but that's from my perspective. So,
I think the idea that stimming is quirky it feels really weird, because it's not just that, oh, that's just a funny thing that they do. It's that is a necessary thing that they do in order to regulate themselves. Like, it's necessary.
mm-hmm.
And, oh, sure, when you're 3, maybe hand flapping looks a little quirky, But when you're 30 and you're still hand flapping, then they're like, well, now you're weird. Like there's certain things you can get away with as a kid that as you get older, society is not so tolerant about.
No, it's yeah. That's why I said I don't have a rebuttal for that, because it shouldn't. Society should not, you know, you know, demean a person because they need a certain, ability to regulate, to be in a, in a state of, calm. People travel or, halfway around the world and pay astronomical, amount of money to be able to go to, facilities to find that mindfulness, to find that calm. And if you can do it by flapping your hands, like, hey, I think you're miles ahead of somebody else.
But you can also do it when you're just really happy.
Yep.
Right? And get shut down for that as well. Because people think you're just being dramatic, or you don't really need to be doing that, or why are you doing it? Like, I don't know why people are so angry about it. Why do you care? Why do you care if someone is happy and flapping their hands about it?
Well, that's a whole different kind of conversation, I think.
Probably.
All right. How's your list going?
I'm done my list, thank you. I have a raging headache now.
Do you have a raging
I actually
headache?
do, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But you did good.
Oh, thanks. I'm smiling through it, but no, I hurt.
Yeah, I know, but this is a good exercise for you to do, because this is what society is going to do, people. This is what happens, right? My whole intention for this podcast was to demonstrate how society is going to challenge people, neurodivergent people, and how easy it is to derail you by just asking you questions out of order.
Well, for me specifically, yes.
Yeah, because I know that is a trigger for you, right? And I used it to my advantage to demonstrate how easy it is to get you to become dysregulated, even though your masking skills are so impeccable that it does not translate, physically, and it does not translate to people, for the audience watching us. But I know, I'm sitting here, I'm watching you, I'm watching your eyes, I'm watching your movement, I'm watching your everything about you, and I know you well enough to know exactly how uncomfortable you are. But this was that's why I took this approach, is just to say to people, it's something as simple as asking a question, and now not allowing a person to follow a procedure can get them to be so uncomfortable. And I know at the end of this, and when we've shut the cameras off and everything has been done, you're just going to go, and you're going to go home, and you're probably going to have a nap for about an hour.
Right? I mean, yeah, I kind of need to go lie down now.
Yep.
Well, I actually need like Advil or something and then go lie down.
Yep. So my position was to just demonstrate that, right? And I'm just asking people to take your needs seriously, is to listen. It doesn't cost you anything to listen. It does not cost you anything to provide you those accommodations in order to be the best version of yourself. And to me, that would be amazing if society could do that.
Yeah, it'd be pretty great.
So, yeah. Until the next time, have a great day.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. If you know someone who might find this episode helpful, feel free to share. Also, check out our website and socials linked in the description.